You're listening to The Watchers, show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch movies and TV about assistant coaches who definitely make it back to New Jersey.
Oh my God. We're starting here?
We're starting here. I mean,
Okay.
no, I think we're going to start in the present and jump back.
I meant we're starting with your insane theory that Coach Ben is still alive in the present.
Okay, so hi, I'm Andrea.
Hi, I'm Jodie. This is The Watchers. We watched Yellowjackets season 3, episode 5. Did Tai Do That?
Yeah, and little note, you and I are both recording in places that we don't typically record and which are not necessarily optimized for podcasting. So if you are jumping in today, for some reason, just know next week we'll be back to our...
Yeah, we normally sound a little bit better than this. I am in a hotel room in Reno, Nevada. So it's strange here.
I'm in an office in my house. It's just not a soundproof studio because I'm as old as the Yellowjackets and almost as old as the Yellowjackets. And I threw my back out and my studio is underground. So getting down there, someone would have to carry me back up.
We're doing great.
But yeah.
Oh my gosh. This was a weird one.
This was a weird one. I mean, you know, I'm along for the ride. I liked it. I'm going to ask you a question about this.
Mm-hmm.
So before you watched this episode, on a scale of 1 to 10, where were you on Ben Makes It Back? On a scale of 0 to 10.
On a scale of 0 to 10. Okay. I was at a 1.
Okay. And how about now?
I'm still at a 1. Maybe
Not
a
even
0.
like a 1 less? Not
maybe
even like
less.
I thought you were going to be like 1.5.
They cut his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
They cut his Achilles heel. He can no longer walk. They are going to save him to eat through the winter.
You think that's what they mean? You think that's what Akilah means by the bridge? Even if she doesn't know that she means?
Yes. I think he is their food bridge.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I know this is not what you want to hear, but I don't think he's coming home.
I thought they were going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, hilariously, again, also because my current physical state, I watched Yellowjackets on the big screen in the living room with my housemate Kitsy, who has not watched Yellowjackets.
Oh, geez. What a way to jump in.
That was really fun. They were like, this is like pop-up video, because they kept having to be like, so that's other time. You could tell because she's a little different.
Pop-up video. Wow. What a reference.
See, it's funny when Walter said the thing about body count because they both killed people. Or it's like, well, Shauna killed somebody. Well, I guess Walter did too.
Yes.
Everybody
has killed someone.
Misty, so it's different.
Right. Everyone has killed someone in the show.
It's so funny. Like, this show has I know we know, but trying to like catch somebody up quickly as the show is going on.
I never thought about how hard that would be to do, actually. This is okay. So I, as I tend to do, have perused the boards of Reddit.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. What's the general feeling?
Anger. Everybody hated this episode.
Oh, huh.
It was so much vitriol that I got annoyed.
Whoa, you gotta let go and let God with Yellowjackets.
Right.
You just kind of have to roll with
seriously,
it. Or stop
let
watching.
it go. Yeah, there were definitely a few comments that were like, Jesus Christ, if you hate it this much, why are you watching it? Like, people are talking about...
Because Reddit loves to...
I know. People are talking about how it's like turned into a CW show. I'm like, what do you remember about season 1 that I don't? Because this is how it's been. Like, it's had slower moments and more like kind of peppy moments, but it's always been this show. It's always been campy. It's always been stupid at times and silly and gross and dark. Like, this is what we were told from minute 1 we were getting into. So Jesus Christ, relax.
I really don't get it.
I know. I don't either. It's that same combination that we've had all along of like really crazy, gross, dark things with dumb humor. And
and I get that if that's not your thing.
Yeah, it's always been that.
Right. It's totally been, and it totally is my thing. So maybe I'm more open to it. But if you're not open to it, I don't know how you liked this show in the first place.
I know. I feel the same way. So anyway, we don't need to belabor what other people think of the show, but I feel a little defensive of it from people who I don't think are, you're watching it wrong.
Exactly.
But you're kind of watching it wrong. Like,
I'll just say again, go watch Severance, which is the other best show on TV. Although, actually, if you have, I'm trying to decide. I think if you have these, I think you might have a similar problem with Severance in terms of like tone, because that show also, I think the balance is great, but it does vacillate. Did you watch this week yet? And that's all I'll say.
I did.
It was a movie.
Yeah. It was a little mini movie, as was the week before. We've had 2 sort of pseudo bottle episodes back to back.
I can't wait until our Severance rewatch podcast.
I mean, hey.
Or not rewatch, watch long podcast.
Yeah.
Next season.
Yeah. You know, in 2073. So, all right. So in this one, we ended in the wilderness.
Yeah. And I think we have to save that for the end, right? Should we start in the present?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
That makes sense. Yeah. Because we do start in the present in the show itself too. So we might as well. Yeah. Okay. Misty
at the morgue.
How am I more of a Misty fan than I am anyone else right now? Like in both timelines. But here,
yeah. For me, it's because everybody's so mean to Misty and she just doesn't deserve it. She really doesn't.
They're all terrible and they're acting like she's the only one who is.
Yeah, I texted you last night and said, and I didn't mean it because I didn't hate this episode, but I said, I'm not sure if I hated this episode or just all of the women in it. And I didn't hate the episode, but it's like
they're terrible.
And I know that that's another problem some people are having, which is such a weird
100%
thing to have a problem with in a show like this. This isn't a show I'm watching because I'm expecting them to like learn lessons and grow and become better people.
No, and it's like, I'll get off the soapbox in a minute, but like, if you hate the women in the show and you're like surprised you hate them, do you remember the first scene of the first episode where they were chasing someone through the woods until she fell into a pit and then gutted her?
Right.
Like, what did you think you were watching?
It's so strange.
You know, it's like the whole point of this show is how these girls are still, like how these women are still in their like survival mode, teenage brains trying to be in actual normal society, and it's failing.
That post that's like, watching people trying to argue morality over characters from Yellowjackets is so exhausting. Pick your favorite cannibal and be quiet.
Yes, exactly. That is my motto of how to watch this show. Pick your favorite cannibal and be quiet.
Yeah.
And right now my favorite cannibal is Misty.
Exactly.
I feel like she is the most human.
Mari, even though she
had one line in this episode.
Yeah, she made a bad move last week though, so
she did.
But
she had one line this week. But how is Misty the one identifying the body? Or maybe they already identified it, but like it seems like she's identifying the body.
Yeah, it's hard to say what exactly is going on.
Yeah,
there.
like how is she in there? Whatever, suspension of disbelief. But
Fred's also a citizen detective, so
yes,
I think that's kind of our way to be able to kind of hand wave what Misty's doing at the morgue.
I'm fine with that. I do think it's funny. We don't see this happen very often. I think the only other time I can remember is when we saw Shauna, when she killed Adam, kind of flip to teen Shauna. But Misty and Lottie both like are teen versions of themselves for a moment in this scene, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, me too. This episode is just so
it's very
silly, but very Misty.
Yes. Yeah, she's just like, she's bringing up, you know, Fred's misdeeds that she knows about because he's also a citizen detective. Apparently he like steals things off bodies and sells them on eBay.
Right. Which she knows, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a really good line though when she's like, well, we're sisters in all the ways that matter. Oh, I didn't he's like legally?
Yes, the important one. But he gives her Lottie's personal effects, which I'm assuming if she had any family that gave a shit or knew what was happening, which she does not, they would be unhappy about.
We know her dad, we've learned now. Really interesting to see family because we never do.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that because I got a lot out of that like reveal of where she lived and her dad and all of that. I feel like we got a lot of info there. But he gives her the bag of evidence and she just snags some photos on her way out because, you know, what's he going to do about it?
Exactly.
But I loved this scene at her house because it's so fucking petty. Shauna's sitting in between Van and Tai and Misty like just doesn't say her name.
Giving her the silent treatment.
Yeah. It's like you invited her to your home, but you're not going to actually speak her name. Yeah. So they're sitting on her couch and she says, Tai, Van, thank you all for coming. It's so petty. I love it.
It's so petty and it's so teen Misty.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like you can see now how they're kind of pairing the two timelines again. I think more this season because you're seeing Misty and Shauna on two very different sides of this divide with Ben in the teen timeline. And we're seeing them be mad at each other now and be accusing each other of things. And it does kind of track. But she tells them that Lottie's dead.
And if you're somebody who thinks it could be one of these women who did it, boy, does Shauna do little to like
That's so interesting that you say that because I was mildly convinced by Shauna's reaction and I was not convinced by Ty's at all.
I wasn't,
and I don't necessarily, I don't think any of them actually killed her, but
right. But if that's how you're watching, I think they were all pretty, you could read them in whatever way, but Shauna's like, no, I just saw her.
Yeah.
Like, was a little, so.
Yeah. Well, and Ty didn't have much of a reaction at all, which I thought was interesting. Van was the only one I thought that had like a normal human reaction.
Mm-hmm.
She said, are you sure? I mean, she can't be, she's Lottie, which also like these women have survived so much. I mean, they kind of hint at this, but they've survived so much that the idea of one of them dying now is kind of crazy to them. It's like, well, why now? Right? After all of this. And so Misty says, I confirmed it myself at the morgue. The coroner ruled it accidental. They think she fell down the stairs, but it feels fishy.
And Shauna immediately, where were you, Misty? Which is fair for any of those women to suspect any of these women is totally fair.
Yeah. Although so is Misty's response, which is, so you think that I murdered Lottie and then held a meeting here to discuss it?
And they're like, pretty on brand.
Yeah. But I do think that that's a little far. We have a little back and forth between Shauna and Misty about how Shauna still is like, you locked me in the freezer and, but you left, and she can't really have it both ways, but she's trying to.
Mm-hmm.
And so fucking Shauna says, if anyone has a reason to be angry at Lottie, it's you. Lottie just left your house and put the necklace on your child.
Yeah.
Shauna, if anyone has a reason to be mad, it's you.
It's literally you.
Yeah. Like, that's the most recent thing that Lottie did was put a death necklace on your only child.
Death necklace.
Like who else would be more mad? So yeah. But then Misty storms out of her house.
So good. So Misty.
Oh God. The show's comedy. She says, she comes back in and she says, yeah, okay. Yeah. You need to leave.
It's a really great line delivery.
Yeah. Oh, I have a friend who just started watching, a couple friends actually who just started watching before season 3. And one of them texted me the other day and was like, Christina Ricci and whoever's playing young Misty are like killing it. I'm like, yes, they are. Samantha
and they
Hanratty.
Continue to kill it.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, Misty. So then after that, Misty, in our present timeline, obviously, Misty realizes that Lottie's phone is not in her belongings. So she calls Fred.
Right. And he says it wasn't there in the first place.
Exactly.
She smells her dress, which was like weird and also very sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm telling you, I don't know, I'm Team Misty all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Have you not been? I don't remember that.
I've not been, but I think I'm more on her side now than I have been in the past.
Right. Because delighting in her behavior doesn't make you Team Misty.
Correct. Yeah. And we have said before that we both kind of think that she is the most in touch with reality in a weird, twisted way.
When
where, like,
this is your reality. Yeah.
Right. Like she knows what's happening. She's not denying it. Mm-hmm. She's not pretending nothing happened in the past, But so she goes to try to find the phone. We don't know right now where she's going, but Shauna follows.
Right. And someone follows Shauna.
Not Walter. It's not Walter.
Definitely not
Andrea.
Walter.
It's not Walter. Don't worry about it.
Do we think that's a little clue that Walter isn't who he says he is?
Maybe.
So funny that that's the car he drives.
I know. And you see the driving gloves and the tiki cat on the dashboard. All I have to say is that tailgating behavior is so normal in New Jersey. Who hasn't wanted to brake check the asshole behind them in New Jersey? We've all done it.
And who hasn't been the asshole getting brake checked,
Yeah. That's fair. But she gives up on following Misty, brake checks Walter, and goes. She's got the mace. She comes out of the car with the mace, goes up to his window. And the two of them, we haven't really seen them interact.
No.
They're so weirdly stilted together, like not in a bad way, but in a like, these are two characters that just are not on the same planet.
Exactly.
Like they're aliens to each other. Mm-hmm. It's super funny. It appears my cover is blown. I've appointed myself chief citizen detective in the murder of Lottie Matthews.
It's because it's so funny because it like, you know, his line last season of I'm just a, you know, Moriarty looking for my Sherlock. Mm-hmm. Like he's so playing a game, obviously, in a way that Misty isn't
right now.
Obviously, but he's like so in the character of this. Like,
and I think it's such a misread on his part of what is happening with her, because even in their first encounter when she was charmed by him, like he was still treating that as a game, and she was like, no, my best friend is missing. Mm-hmm. Like this is not, and he's reading it as like just another, you know, mystery from the boards to be solved together. So you can really see that here. A couple of people I noticed were saying like, oh, I can't wait till Misty and Walter get back together. And after this, I was like, actually, I don't think she should get back together with Walter. Yeah, there's something going on with him that I'm not a fan of.
I mean, I still love him, but...
Of course, but I don't think that he's very good for Misty.
No.
He brings up the fact that she murdered Adam Martin, and she says, that wasn't murder, per se.
Again, that's straight out of when Callie confronts her the first time and asks if she's a murderer, and she's like, no, well...
But, you know, for him to accuse, he also... It recently has killed people. It's another one of those, like, Shauna's accusing Misty, but Shauna has reason to want to hurt Lottie. This is the same thing. Everybody's just pointing fingers at everyone else.
Exactly. And when he says, like, you're very intuitive. Also, this scene happening with the wacky arm waving tube guy behind them.
I wrote this down.
High comedy. It's so funny.
Chef's kiss to the cinematographer or the director or whoever decided to have the yellow wacky waving inflatable tube man behind them as he says how intuitive Shauna is.
Truly like a guffaw out of me. It's just I
laughed
funny.
So hard. It's so perfect.
That's this show. That right there is this show.
I know. Yes, exactly. But they're going to team up. Because they're gonna have a caper, which God, we love a caper.
Odd couple. I really love an odd couple team up.
Well, and the reveal of them, even though we'd seen clips of them in those outfits, the reveal of them later on is just like
perfect.
High comedy. But Tai and Van are at a restaurant. Nice restaurant.
Yeah.
Tai is very chill about the fact that Lottie, this person that she survived 19 months in the wilderness with, is now dead.
Right. And we'll go back and talk about this more when we get to the wilderness. But they're doing that thing of, you know, we'll get a Tai in the past. It'll to parallel with the present. Yes. So they're really driving home the idea that other Tai killed Lottie and doesn't realize she did.
Yeah. Yeah. And for us to kind of be wondering how much of what we've seen of Tai, especially recently, is actually other Tai.
Right. Like I said last week, I think she's been reintegrated, but it's definitely what they want, how they want us to be watching it right now.
Yeah. And so this scene does come right after a scene of her when she gets the king in the draw.
Exactly.
When she finds out she's the one that's going to have to kill Coach Ben.
Right. But yeah, like you were saying, she's so light here about it. Should we just get like a whole bunch of things and split them?
Yeah. Van is a little more grounded in like this is not a thing that you're even thinking about. Like, what is happening?
Which, no matter which Tai is behind the wheel in that scene, is a problem.
Yes. Like, this isn't just like, oh, your childhood friend died, which is horrible enough. This is literally like someone that you went through like the worst possible events that you could imagine happening with. And they're gone. And you're just like, well, I don't know. Should we just get a little bit of everything?
And you also know, or at least have thought, you have reason to be paranoid about other people wanting to bring harm to you and your soccer team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know what, unless.
Yeah. She's not concerned. And this is where Van is reiterating that idea of like, after everything we've been through, this doesn't make any sense. But Tai seems fine. And Van is questioning her about where she went during that missing hour. And honestly, Tai's explanation does make sense. Like, it's not a 15-minute thing to get from wherever the hell they were, Union Square, maybe up to Columbus Circle. Her explanation actually totally made sense to me, that it would take that long to like get there, get cash, set up the horse and carriage ride.
Right. But I do think that when Tai says like, are you asking me, are you, implying that and she's like, no. But then what Van is saying is, I'm saying maybe other Tai did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And she's got reason to wonder, obviously.
Of course.
But Simone calls. Simone is still around. We knew that she was still alive because we'd had the interactions between them before, but we hadn't actually seen Simone.
No, and if I were Simone,
the car accident,
I'd be on the other side of the country with that kid. Though legally, I don't know that she can, but
yeah. And also, Ty's a lawyer. Apparently not a very good one, but she's a lawyer. But God, this whole thing with Simone and Tai, we're not quite there yet because we flipped to Misty first, but. So Misty goes into this building, and at first I thought it was a hotel. It's not. It's one of those fancy apartment buildings in New York with a doorman who's known your family forever.
Exactly.
But she walks directly to the authorized personnel door, opens it, and just goes in.
Because, Misty didn't kill Lottie.
Right.
I said because, but my point being, like, she wouldn't be investigating the crime scene if she killed Lottie.
She's looking at the claw marks on the stair wall. She talks to the desk guy. What was his name? Cliff? Yes, Cliff.
Of course. Perfect.
Yes, she talks to Cliff. And I honestly, in this whole section, I feel like we find out so much more about Lottie than we found out about so many other people and their backstories. Like, I understand the complaints about this episode being like not moving the plot forward enough, but we did get some background info.
Right.
Like that I think was really useful.
Yeah, like they used to call lollipops, for example.
Like that. For example. Yes. I wrote on my notes, like, this is where she lived, exclamation point. Mr. Matthews lived in the penthouse, exclamation point. Like,
that's stuff I want to know because we know so little about their families. Like, I think that's interesting stuff.
But we also find out that she had been living with her dad for weeks.
Yeah.
Which we knew she didn't need to go to Shauna's house. But now this is like making it extremely clear that this was part of something she was doing for a reason.
Exactly.
With Callie.
And we find out really quickly that her dad is some sort of dementia or something that is affecting his memory.
Yep. So Misty, in order to get in, brings some rugula, as you do in the city. You got to get the chocolate rugula. He obviously has a caretaker who is the person answering the door. But Misty says she's Mary from the 5th floor, playing on the idea that he won't remember her and will be convinced that she's actually Mary from the 5th floor. What did you think of this gambit of how to get in, saying that like Lottie had a package for her?
Yeah, I think if if it were someone whose memory weren't already addled, I'd be a little more like, Misty, even for you, but
yeah, because it wasn't a very good lie, but I guess it didn't need to be.
Not as good as your internet service providers need to get in, I think. Misty should have shown up as a different internet service provider.
Yeah.
He says, so they're, he thinks he's got a meeting that he's waiting on and blah, blah, blah. He's like still living his business life. He says something a little peculiar here because Misty asks about Lottie and what could have happened. And he says like, no, this was a simple accident. Artie at the station knows his foundation won't see a dime if he says otherwise.
Yeah.
Which like, I don't think is actually anything because why would Lottie's dad have, but
a speculation that I've seen is that he is conflating this with the plane crash. No, the plane crash.
If it comes back, the way that I have brushed that conspiracy theory off.
So I still don't think that has any weight to it. I think it's more there was like no safety checks on the plane or there was like mechanical like neglect or something.
Okay, yeah.
That it was like his fault, but not intentional.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But I didn't even think about, I thought he was conflating it with some other shady business he had done in the past, not necessarily that it was directly related to the crash. Wow.
Yeah. I've also seen other people's conspiracies about how it could be whatever they did when she got back or like covering up the cannibalism, like bribing people about that.
Just something that he knows more about what happened than we.
Right. And that he paid people off to not talk about.
Which is possible.
I think the most likely
what's Occam's reason for you?
Occam's reason for me is the fact that the plane was old and shitty and probably hadn't been maintained properly, and it was some sort of mechanical issue.
Right.
And so it was his fault for not, for hiring a cheap ass plane or having a cheap ass plane. So I think he like paid people off to not to let that go.
That makes a lot of sense. It would be like kind of sad to find out that he caused the crash, but not for some weird,
like really
big
dark
conspiracy,
reason.
Dark reason. Just in the same way that, wow, okay. So now in the same way that like every quote unquote like weird supernatural thing has ended up just being these women hurting themselves, like that kind of fits in line with that story.
It does. And I also think like the only thing that keeps me from kind of going all in on that theory is I always assumed her dad was kind of a terrible person. Like he kind of comes off that way in the car scene and all of that.
Well, and also we hate rich people.
Yeah, naturally. But the way that he acts later on towards Shauna when he thinks that she's Lottie is actually quite sweet.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he's always been an asshole and he just like, came, like it could be that after she got back, it changed, or I don't know. But that behavior was different from what I expected from him.
Yeah.
And obviously he has some sort of dementia, but like.
But that he's not like a super, I mean, first of all, people not to like generalize, but typically if you're going to have a big personality change with dementia, it's not that you become sweet.
Nicer. Yes. No, that's true. I know. I was thinking that too.
Yeah. It's quite possibly another example of we're assuming he's some kind of big bad, and it turns out he's really just a dad are you a dad raising kids in the 80s and 90s and you never learned how to like speak to your kids or show them how you love,
that's crazy. I don't know. That's nuts. We get a little sense of how he feels about Lottie's post-crash or post-rescue life, because he calls her people the cult nutsos,
right?
Which I thought was funny.
But also a kind of good sign, though, I don't know if good sign's the right word, but that also the fact that he calls them the like cult nutsos, but was still letting her live there. And
yeah, exactly. At this point, we finally get the reveal that while Misty is trying to work her way into the apartment, Shauna and Walter are already there. And I would just like to quote this AV Club review of the episode, because it says, she schemes her way into the apartment by pretending to be a neighbor looking for a lost package, but Walter and Shauna have beaten her to the punch. They're already inside, dressed like Mario if he worked for the Geek Squad, posing as technicians working on Mr. Matthews' internet connection.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this becomes sort of like a farce. Like they're just like trying to outwit each other to, get the other one kicked out. They're trying to see who can get into the bedroom to find the phone first. He's trying to hack Lottie's internet history, which Misty thinks is so basic.
So basic.
Yeah. And we really need a Walter reveal soon, because when she says, he mentions joining forces and she says, I would rather jump out a window. And he looks, I don't know what he looks like. He looks either angry or hurt or both. He just looks like he has a very specific look on his face. It's similar to the look when she said in the previous episode, you don't understand, what it's like, blah, blah, blah. And he has this like flash of, a different expression.
For a long time, I wanted Walter to, I guess I do still feel this way, where I'm like, I think he does care for her, but for a while I was like, what if it is just that? That's kind of nice, because it fits in with so much of them speculating there's something more going on. But I do think there is something more going on with Walter.
Yeah, I do too. Even if it's just that he is like this sort of psycho-jealous type. Like even if it's just that, and that he is sabotaging her friend, so he becomes her only like recourse. But it could be a lot more than that too.
I was reminded because he's wearing the shorts that, he's, even in this, he's wearing the shorts of that little theory that he was watching her early on, because we know that one of her turn-ons is men's calves.
Yep. He knows he's working every angle he's got.
That's right. And
his calves are one of them.
Shauna's really funny here. I really love because Misty It's a really good kind of like back and forth because Walter has the good idea that he needs to run some cables in that back room, which apparently is dangerous. I don't know. But Mr. Matthews falls for that first.
Right.
But then Misty has the good sense to come up with a ruse to get them out of the house. And then Shauna says something about the concrete walls and knocks on it, expecting
it's the least hollow sound you've ever heard.
Sounds hollow to me.
Yeah. It's so good. It's like, it's a perfect sound. Yeah. I just wrote Shauna knocks, sounds hollow to me. His calves are out. Because that's when we get a shot of his calves.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're getting some, again, more sort of other Tai evidence here. Tai and Van are at the park.
With their 25-year-old son.
Who brings your fucking wilderness girlfriend?
Van, you gotta wait down the block. What are we doing? To the
first meeting with your child, this like supervised meeting with your ex-wife who you almost killed, and your child.
How hard would it be to say, "Hey, Van, can you hang back?
Go to a coffee shop."
Yeah,
like don't just show up and sit next to her on the fucking bench.
It's
nuts.
It's nuts.
Completely nuts.
So overconfident.
Yes.
Or it's so like
no, it's oblivious.
It's either oblivious or mean.
Yeah. I do think it's more oblivious, at least on Van's part. Like these people are so removed from what normal society is, especially when they're with each other. It like they just forget like how to be humans.
That's really accurate.
But apparently Sammy has been asking for Tai. And so Van sits on the bench with Simone and Simone says, "So you're her, huh?" Which I thought was a nice little petty Simone moment.
I really like Simone.
Well, and it's funny. I was so annoyed with Simone, but Simone in this moment here, I was annoyed with her in season 1. Mm-hmm. Simone in this moment is everyone else. Mm-hmm. Simone is reality. Simone is like normal society being like, what the absolute fuck is wrong with you?
This. Exactly.
Yeah, this is insane.
Yep.
But then Sammy walks away after like 2 seconds. It's funny. Tai.
We get that tiny little flashback. It's barely a flashback because it's from earlier in the day later that kind of confirms what happened here. Mm-hmm. But it's so obvious. I don't know if it's just because they wanted them to have a little more screen time because they brought them out for the shoot.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, we don't see it here. Right in here, we just see Sammy walk away from her and Simone look like protective and kind of herd him away. But yeah, we find out later what their conversation was. Mm-hmm. There's so many references to myth in this episode because next we have Walter and Shauna in the hallway. They're tackling the firewall and he brings up Theodosian walls. Yes, which is not something I was familiar with, but
no, me either. But he tries to tell Shauna. We just keep getting shown over and over that Walter doesn't really understand what's going on.
No,
he's like, he thinks that, and also there's also a little bit of it that's like Shauna is not a match for Walter in the way that Misty is when they're doing well together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Their energies are just really off from each other.
Yeah. She's not interested in any of it at all.
He sees that caretaker taking out the trash and he looks at the trash very intentionally. I'm sure we'll see him going through that at some point.
Right.
But he kind of takes a dig at Shauna here because she says, "Why wouldn't Lottie come here? Why come to my house?" And he's like, "Maybe she needed a friend."
I know. Like,
yeah. And so he kind of goes after Shauna's terrible idea of friendship.
It's funny because like maybe she did. But also, these women are so bad at being friends that it's like, it's not like...
Yeah. And I think that it had to do with Callie,
totally.
Ultimately. Mm-hmm. We get the really unpleasant line here. "I know what makes her toes curl."
Yeah.
Walter, no. No.
I love you, Elijah Wood, but...
No. Nope. She likes a challenge.
Which is true.
Yes, but in this case, it's a serious misreading of what she wants
here. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he's trying to get Shauna to give him a hair.
So
for mutually assured destruction. What the absolute fuck? Like, no.
He really is just on a different planet than everybody else.
Yeah.
He makes that little grab for her hair. She's like, what the
Don't fucking do that to Shauna.
Exactly.
He's lucky that he's still alive.
He's lucky she didn't have a knife in her hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Because seriously, like, I would not make a sudden move around that woman. But he finds one in the hat anyway.
Right, of course.
But Misty has succeeded in getting into the bedroom. She finds the phone, but it's been reset by Walter.
But he cloned it, so.
Yes. She just has to cooperate. This is not how you work with Misty.
It's so funny how, I know we keep saying it, but he just over and over again doesn't get it.
No. She says, why are you doing this? And he thinks they're having fun. He is like, this is the most sort of like sociopathic. Yeah. Totally. This is about, and this is someone who's has done 2 jigsaw puzzles at the same time. This is the most sociopathic I feel like I've seen him. This complete lack of understanding of what Misty is communicating here.
Yeah.
She says, I can't believe I let someone as despicable as you give Caligula a bath.
I don't know if anybody else could give that line reading that way. Like,
I know.
It's perfect because it feels real. And that is a wild thing to say and have it come across as genuine.
I know. And it does come across as genuine. Shauna is in Lottie's room now because Misty has stormed off and said that they deserve each other. That's one of the other like little funny undercurrents is that Misty is somehow convinced that he has rebounded with Shauna.
And both of them like
no. So we see in her room there's pictures of the Yellowjackets. There's also a picture of a young girl, which Reddit has theorized could be a child of Lottie. I think that we're reaching here, but apparently the kid is in a costume that is supposedly a specific costume from Frozen, from like very much post crash.
Okay.
She could have a niece or something. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to put my 2 cents in there. It seemed like they did show those photos on purpose, but it could just be a random photo of a kid. Shauna looks actually sad here, though.
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes I think accidentally.
She has human feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see her flash through a bunch of images. Yes, other than rage. We see her flash through a bunch of images in her head of Lottie at different stages. One of them notably is Lottie with blood on her face, which we haven't seen. Yeah.
And it looks like kind of like ritualistic blood. It's not like splattered. It's like applied.
Yes. Right. It's like painted on her face with like handprints or whatever. But Lottie's dad comes in and in his sort of addled brain thinks that Shauna is young Lottie. And he says that he told her to clean her room. And Shauna plays along. This is the kindest I've seen Shauna in a while. You know?
Yeah.
He's, he talks about the crazy voices in her head. He apologizes and said that he's trying his best. This is what I mean about him not being the villain that I expected him to be, at least not now.
Right. Well, and they're setting this, the way they shoot this with it being young Lottie, it's like, it just feels like this is a conversation he has had with her before.
Or that he wanted to have with her
before. Right.
Yeah. And then Shauna says here, sometimes it's hard to show love the way we want to. Okay, Shauna.
Oh, where's your mirror? Like,
right. And also, so somebody mentioned that one of the reasons she could have acted with this much kind of kindness and sympathy here is because she's also lost a child. And there's that like
that's true
connection. We don't know anything about Shauna's parents. So there's no way to know if this has anything to do with her own relationship with her father.
Right. She gives him a hug here though.
Yeah.
That is for a second seems very sweet, but then she like you see how perfunctory it actually is. Like as it pulls back and she says like, okay, good. Like, there, I've done it.
Yeah, exactly. He says, what if we get food from that Chinese place you like and watch the new Scorsese? I also noted there's a butterfly print on the wall behind there.
There's people and their butterflies.
They're butterflies. They're fucking mountains. They're wolves. Like, Jesus Christ. It's like, when you peaked in high school and you still like wear your Letterman's jacket. Sorry, it's such overkill, the amount of mountain pictures that are in everyone's house.
Yeah. Again, like, as I've said, I would move into like a concrete tube.
Yep. Modernist. Yep. Exactly. Windows, white walls, chrome furniture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep. Speaking of moving, Didn't do that on purpose, but Tai is in Sammy's room. This is where we see what he actually said to her at the park, which is, are you not my mommy anymore? And she says, I'll always be your mommy no matter what. And he walks away.
Right.
Because he's like, you know what the fuck I'm talking about, lady.
Exactly.
And you're not admitting it. He's talking about other Tai.
And then he gets in his car and drives home.
Because he's a teenager.
He's a teenage boy.
I love that they filmed him like crouched down on the ground so he would look smaller.
He's clearly 35 years old.
Yeah. But at least we know that Steve's okay.
Exactly.
That's the important thing here. Steve is all right.
That was a fun one with Kitsy where I was like,
oh, you had to explain why it was important that Steve was all right? Oh, God.
Well, that's Tai, and we do care about her, but she did kill the family dog.
Yeah.
She didn't know she did.
Yeah. But she decides they need a change of scenery.
Well, I mean, here it's funny because, like I said, I think Tai has been reintegrated, and it is often, both versions of Tai at the same time, except when they do things like this where you see the shutters go down again. I think maybe they're always, with the blinds you can twist so they're open halfway. I think it's always like that, except she can also fully shutter, and this was a full shutter.
I think you're very right there. Yeah, exactly. She needs to get out of that house, which, to be fair, you and I believe said weeks ago, like, why is Van sleeping in your child's room?
So weird.
Why are you still like spending all this time with your woods girlfriend in the house that you shared with your wife, who you almost killed? Like,
and
it makes no sense.
Yeah. It seems to me though, that other Tai, it's not for other Tai so much about getting away from that house as she has somewhere in mind she wants to go. Yeah. And I wonder where that could be.
I wondered about that too. But that's where we end the present day timeline, is that. And so I did watch, I don't know if you saw, I watched the next week on. We don't see anything about that. So
interesting.
We shall see what happens there. This is tough.
The Wilderness every week is harder and harder to watch.
And it's not going to stop, I don't think, because, man, they are descending pretty quick into what we saw they were going to turn into,
Which is still, I still think we're only halfway through the season. And with this sort of rapid movement that we're getting here, I have, every week I feel it more and more possible that we'll see rescue at the end of the season.
Attempted rescue, at least.
Yeah, exactly. At least the one that I keep saying, I think we might get some sort of botched rescue at the very least. Well,
and I think when we watched the trailer at the end, I caught something that felt like it was pointing in that direction too. So
interesting.
But when we get to the Wilderness this episode, Akilah is bringing a goat into the pen where Ben is tied up. Kind of loosely, it looked like, but maybe I'm wrong.
They're not worried about him.
Yeah, he's just loosely tied to a log. There's a bunch of bunnies running around.
And again, he's loosely tied to a log. You said it, but let's really take a minute here. He's in the livestock paddock.
Yep.
They could have tied him up pretty much anywhere.
Goats and bunnies. Yep. But this was an interesting note. He asks if it's the one whose mother Akilah found dead yesterday. Why are they finding animals dead? Yeah. Again, I was sharing our podcast with someone here the other day, and I was flipping through our Instagram clips, and we don't have as many recently, but I encourage you to go back and watch some of them if you haven't, because they're really funny. But there is one where we talk about the mind theory. This is way back in season 1, where I was kind of on mind theory.
You were really into that one.
I was into it because it's a scientific explanation, not because I'm smart, but I just thought it was I liked the idea of that kind of as an explanation for what was happening. But we were talking about how it could explain things like the birds falling out of the sky that Lottie saw as a prophecy. And now we've got a, random dead goat. We had the bear that basically, bowed down in front of Lottie. I just think we're seeing these things on purpose. he says that the baby goat is going to need special feeding because his mom used to foster kittens. They're making this so fucking hard.
Don't tell us about your background. I don't want your backstory right now.
I know. His mom used to foster kittens. He asks her what the plan is, and she says she doesn't know anything. Which
she's really going through it.
To be fair, I don't think she does know anything. No. She's kind of in this other group right now with Lottie and Travis. This trio of gas huffers. I gotta tell you, if you're watching Severance and Yellowjackets, the fact that we've got ghosts and huffing chemicals happening simultaneously is a parallel I could never have expected.
Shows with Jersey DNA. It's
just wildly different. Yeah.
So
wildly different
funny.
Premises.
Such a good point.
Interesting parallels happening right now. And we That's actually, really when people have talked about the mind theory and the gases that could be down there, like ether, I think was one of them. Or like it was like methane gas, ether, things like that. So anyway, there's all of these like connections happening.
I know it wasn't a huge walk to get here, but I do feel pretty satisfied that I called this. I don't remember if I did on mic or not, but that this is what's happening.
I absolutely, when I was watching it last night, was like, oh, yep, Andrea called this. It's interesting actually how much this season connects to things that either you and I have talked about or people on Reddit have brought up in the past about mythology. Like we'll talk about what Lottie says in a little bit about the Oracle of Delphi. But the next scene we get in the wilderness is Nat saying there's got to be another way. And this again, we got this last time. If everybody's fulfilling their role. So Nat is saying there's got to be another way. Lottie walks up with Travis's drawing and says, Travis drew this. It might be what it wants. Lottie, go to your little flower altar in the woods and
you know what? I'm glad
leave
you're
everyone
dead.
alone. Just go to your little like tree stump and leave everyone else alone because you're not helping.
I need all of them to leave each other alone.
Yes. Like, can we get into the warring clans thing already? Like, get them away from each other because this isn't working. But this is where we get that scene of Shauna.
I hate to interrupt.
No, please do.
I can't believe I haven't thought of this specific thing before.
What?
Oh, no. Most of them were seniors. Never mind. That's why I haven't thought of the specific thing before. I was just imagining all of them coming home and next year having to sit in desks across from each other. That's all.
Like, or in like a chemistry lab, like dissecting a frog. They'd be so
Maybe
good
I'm going to leave this in.
No, that would be great.
I wish they were all sophomores or juniors now so that we could have. Yeah. Although, hold on. They did miss at least a full year of school.
Yeah.
So
I think they'll probably let the Woods Cannibals take their GED. You know,
I want them all back in class.
I know. You got to start with dissecting the worm.
So funny.
And then the frog.
One of them eats the worm without even realizing.
They get a fetal pig and they're like, oh, no. Cool. And they like take out the Bunsen burner and like start making lunch.
Just imagine having to sit at desks, like to have to do anything, to have to go through the lunch line. Like,
oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Gym class. Right.
Oh my God. Hilarious.
Oh, I need this as like a whole other season.
Exactly. Anyway.
Unfortunately, we have Shauna talking about burning Ben alive. He wants fire. We'll give him fire. But we get what Mari, your friend,
cold.
your favorite,
my girl Mari.
Her one line, which is a decent one. You want to burn him at the stake like an old timey witch?
It's a good point.
She's got a good point. I am now Team Mari.
Mm-hmm.
These people are nuts. She was right to be a bitch to them.
Something we haven't talked about on the podcast is that I have, in general, an impeccable vibe checker. And
you were right about Mari.
That's right.
Yes, I'll admit it.
Thank you
right.
so much. Thank you.
Melissa is just sucking up to Shauna every chance she gets.
She's so obvious.
I know.
She does. Know. She's not even trying to be.
No, not at all. No subtlety whatsoever. But Nat says that's not justice, it's torture, and she suggests a firing squad, which is actual murder. I mean, like, I guess it's better than burning someone alive, but it's still murder.
It's still murder. It is so, I guess, I don't know.
Also, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please.
Have to make a point here. One person with a gun is not a firing squad. The whole point of a firing squad is multiple people shooting so you don't know who killed the person.
It's not a squad.
It's not a squad. It's a it's a firing solo expedition. It's one person with a gun. It's not a firing squad. There's a whole point to there being a firing squad. Yeah. They could have had a firing squad and then they wouldn't have known who killed it, but they only have one gun, so they can't have it.
That's true.
Anyway.
That's so funny.
I just had to put that out there.
I didn't think about that, but you're so correct.
That made me nuts.
Hilarious. Well, again, they're
stupid teenage girls
in the woods. What do they know about literally anything?
Well, I saw someone complaining about that being the wrong definition. And I was like, these are like, gas-addled teenage girls
from Central Jersey.
So they're already at a deficit. Even fucking exist. No, I'm kidding.
Just kidding. Such a joke. So sorry.
Kidding.
We believe in you.
But yeah, like they don't know what the fuck a firing squad actually is. And then Shauna, being bitchy little Shauna, is like, trying to say, well, Nat, you're the best shot. You should do it.
It's so nasty. I know that's so obvious to say about
she's
Shauna,
such a mean girl.
But like,
yeah,
I'm gonna say the very obvious thing just in case. Like, she was only saying that because she knows that Nat cares about Ben.
Yes. And I will say that points have been made that I admit are good points, that she is most likely suffering from postpartum psychosis.
Of course.
Like, not just that she's like depressed that her kid died, but like postpartum psychosis is like a real fucking scary thing.
Yeah. We had a caller on Beautiful Anonymous who actually ended up reaching out and asking us not to air her episode. She's anonymous, so this is I think is okay because it's not her voice. Right. But she shared her story of postpartum psychosis, and I won't share the details of it, but it was like really harrowing, and
it's legitimately terrifying. Right. Like it's when we just mentioned like dementia and personality changes, like it's the same kind of thing where like you almost become an unrecognizable version of yourself.
Exactly.
And Shauna's always been kind of a bitch.
Exactly. So. And she was kind of saying on the call that like one of the harder parts about it is she could kind of see it happening and couldn't do anything. Yeah. And that can make,
Yeah, it's rough. So, you're usually the one that gives the caveat about how Shauna has been through hell, but today it's my turn to be like, also, she probably is suffering with this horrible thing.
A really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but
yeah. Because when people are like, how can we ever root for Shauna after this? And it's like, well, yes, she's done terrible things. She is horrible, especially right now. But also...
But you're right. It's not
she's
necessarily
not always
just
going to be...
Yeah. It's not just necessarily the wound of having lost the child, but that she could be very actively right now in the throes of real psychosis.
Right. Because it's been months, but also they're in the woods with no medical care and they're not eating. Like, and well, maybe they are just, eating,
like, but go away if you don't get help.
No, probably really doesn't go away if your support system is a bunch of like murderous teenage girls, like that don't give a shit about anyone.
Exactly.
So Nat decides they'll do a draw, of course, like with everything. And so she says, whoever gets that, and she pauses because she doesn't want to say the queen. So Van says, whoever gets the king of hearts. It's the suicide king.
It's the suicide king.
This is so 90s girl
teen
knowledge.
Grunge girl. It's the suicide king. Like, we'll make this murder of our innocent coach Ben cool.
Yes, exactly.
It's the suicide king. And also, reminder, the card that Travis was holding.
And exactly. I did note that Lottie just walks away at this point. She just looks like, she's got other things on her mind other than the murder that's about to happen. She's got more important things going on.
More important things. She's such a jackass.
I know.
When there's like a wider shot where Nat is in the background here and she's visibly trembling and holding herself. It's heartbreaking.
Misty also during all of this looks like very, very upset.
I keep being like, I would simply fight back harder about this, but maybe I wouldn't.
I
don't have the gun and I'm not living with Shauna and who knows what I would do.
Yeah. And also what I noticed anyway, maybe this is like bullied teen girl logic because I felt Nat's sense of who around her would maybe stick up for her and who wouldn't, and doing that math in her head.
Yeah.
And thinking about our sort of side characters, right? Jen, who is clearly very anti-Ben.
I was like, who the fuck are you? Get out
I know.
of
She
here,
has
Jen.
such an anger issue with him. Melissa, who is 100% on Shauna's team. We don't know anything about the other Robin and whatever, but like if you're doing that mental math and thinking about who will protect you and who won't, like,
yeah,
you know, she's figured out what her options are, and fighting back doesn't really seem to be one of them right now.
Exactly. That's so sad.
I know. So then we go to the draw. Van is holding the cards. I noted she's making intense eye contact with everyone. Mm-hmm. Like,
she loves
this is it's her role. It's her like dramatic moment.
She's keeper of the cards.
Yeah. Like, I'm surprised she didn't put on some fancy costume for this. Something with like fringe on it.
Some sort of sash.
Yeah, exactly. So they pass all the cards around, and then they reveal them at the same time. And of course, Tai gets the king. Mm-hmm. And I wrote, you prosecuted him, girl.
Yeah.
Like, you're so upset. You're the one who like was the lawyer. But she looks at the camera, basically. This whole next bit, they're in the woods, Tai and Van, and Tai is trying to practice shooting her coach. They've painted a face on a tree.
Looks just like him.
Yeah, on a tree stump. But Tai keeps getting flashes of like young Coach Ben, like before the crash, as like a mentor figure. She says, "What if I miss and blow his other leg off?" Again, in my notes in capital letters, foreshadowing.
Yeah, right.
God.
Right. And the implication sort of there being that would be maybe worse for him than death. It's to lose his other leg.
Uh-huh. Interesting. You can tell she, like, Van asks, you still think that he did it, right? And Tai says yes, but it does seem like she's kind of like, I don't know, maybe. Exactly. She says, front row seats to his death isn't making me feel better. And she says, he tried to murder us in our sleep, Tai. And she says, I guess. And also, that's not been fucking proven, Van.
No.
She says, you still think he's guilty, right? Tai says yes, but it's one thing to say someone should die, and it's another to like do it. And Van says, maybe you won't have to. And again, I'm like, Andrea and I have been talking about this, guys. Mm-hmm. We've been saying that Van has been manipulating other Tai this whole time.
Right.
She is telling Tai that they should bring out other Tai on purpose.
This is
so that Tai won't remember doing it. Exactly. Because she doesn't remember eating Jackie because of that.
Right. And this is the first time we see Tai actively summon other
or try
Tai.
To. Yeah.
Right. Eventually actively summon other Tai to deal with something she doesn't want to have to do. And it's at Van's insistence and direction.
Yep.
And so Van has seemed so passive in the main timeline. She's just kind of like following Tai around, but there's so much more going on with her, I think.
It feels like it.
Or there should be, at least. Like,
well, especially paired with this scene, like what we're seeing of her in the present versus watching what's going on here.
Right. She's so like in control of this.
Yeah. But this is where we get the connection to the title.
Did Tai do that?
You know what it's like? It's like at Family Matters when Steve Urkel turns into Stefan Urkel. Urkel drinks the cool juice and then he turns into suave and sophisticated Stefan. It's still Steve, but like a more fearless version of himself. And this actually is said jokingly, but I noted this. Tai says, so let me get this straight. You're saying other Tai is cool and normal me is Steve Urkel.
Right.
I kind of think Van likes other Tai better.
Totally.
At least right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because other Tai will do what she wants her to do. Man, come on, man.
It's tough stuff in the wilderness.
She uses the phrase summon her.
Yeah. I thought that was telling.
Shauna is, sharpening her knife as Shauna does.
She's such a broody teen.
She is taking on this personality that is very like, it's what we thought Travis was.
Yes.
It's like brooding teen boy. That's like,
nobody
too cool.
Understands me.
Yes, exactly. Like rejecting Mel's advances, but then when Mel like kind of gives up.
Why do you even like me?
Yeah, exactly. So Shauna says she's not looking for company, but Mel made her a knife holster and wrapped it in bark and flowers.
Look, if anybody knows the way to Shauna's heart, apparently it's Mel.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. She says, why do you even like me? I will say, like, I agree with our statement last week that Mel is into Shauna, like physically or power wise or something. Like she is actually into her. She's not just manipulating her or trying to get in on her good side for safety. However, the fact that she brings up Jackie and Jeff here.
Yeah, she's got her own something going on. She's
got an agenda. Mm-hmm. You know, she says Jackie treated her like shit. Jeff like hid her. She says, I like that you're not afraid of the bad parts yourself anymore.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like she can sort of see that a version of the wilderness where Shauna is the Antler Queen, mm-hmm. and she wants to be under her sort of protection and be in her ear.
Absolutely.
It's her little like I'm trying to think of like I'm picturing like if they were in. I'm just picturing Shauna like sitting at a throne, and mm-hmm. Mel like just kind of like at her right hand, whispering in her ear.
Absolutely, that's what she wants. Mm-hmm. I really think that's what her goal is here. Like she may also be attracted to Shauna and her power, but she is thinking strategically, and you see it even more later on.
And she knows she isn't. Like the one to make the power grab herself. It's not going to happen.
No. And she has looked around herself, I think, and judged what's possible. Yes. And I think she's noticed that Shauna needs someone to prop her up a little mm-hmm. bit, like to reassure her that mm-hmm. what she's doing is good.
Right.
You know, because she doesn't have Jackie anymore or Jeff. Mm-hmm. And so Mel is kind of like putting down Shauna's friendship with Jackie to kind of, you know, make herself out to be the one who really understands Shauna and really likes Shauna for who she is. Mm-hmm. She's not trying to fix Shauna. She's just accepting of everything she is. Ugh.
Yeah, it's really...
Conveniently, the knife fits perfectly in the holster. Mm-hmm. Noticed that. Ugh, I hate talking about these scenes.
Have we seen that holster in the present? Like when she goes through her safe, did she keep that?
Oh, interesting. Oh, we should go back and look. I don't remember. Yeah, we should go back and check. But what I hate talking about is anything related to Coach in a livestock pen, because Misty is now bringing him a very fancy looking dinner.
It's Ben's last meal.
Very last meal, yeah. But I thought the lake didn't have fish. Didn't they say that at some point?
There's some, maybe.
There's some like twisty stuff going on here with what they have available to them. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like if I hallucinated that sentence, fine, but I feel like we heard that the lake didn't have fish in it for whatever reason. And we connected that to the mine thing.
Yeah, I can't say that I remember that for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. We also never saw goats last warm weather time before the winter set in. So who knows?
I will say there were a lot of people being like, why would there be goats in this place? And somebody on Reddit, I know I keep talking about this stuff, but somebody on Reddit who is from that area said that there are actually wild goats. They don't look like those goats, but there are actually like wild goats, wild bunnies, like all the things that you've seen so far could be there. Wild ducks, all of that.
Okay. That's good to know.
So it's not that far off in that way. She brings him the fancy fish dinner. He doesn't quite realize what's happening just yet.
I know.
And then she says...
Steven Kruger is... I mean, I think he's always great, but he's so good in this episode.
He is so good. He's so heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. She says they're coming at dusk, firing squad. And his face, just you see it register that it's actually happening. And he is just like... I think even though he knows what these girls are capable of, I think until that moment, he thinks there's maybe some way that he'll get out of this.
Yeah.
But she's really upset.
Yeah.
This is why I'm on Team Misty right now. She apologizes. She says, I did everything I could to save you. She hugs him. And I wrote, is his last hug Misty?
I know.
On this earth? Like, wow.
It's also, again, easy to be, if we're like Team Misty, Team Shauna, Misty's hug here with Ben versus Shauna's adult hug.
Yeah.
It's so different.
This is a real hug. And he actually lets himself kind of lean into it at the end, because I think he realizes that this actually may be his last human contact. It's kind.
Yeah. I'm really glad we know that he makes it to the...
Andrea, I really hope our listeners know that this is a bit. I know that
half of it is a bit. It's like a 5 out of 10 bit, but
it's a wish.
It is absolute. It is a deep wish, but...
He says, out in the real world, I'll hardly be remembered at all, because he's talking about how he will be remembered as this person who burned down the cabin to try to murder a bunch of teenage girls. And Misty says, you were decent, you were kind. She's already talking about him in past tense too.
I know. Oh, it's so hard. I like started crying here and I didn't really stop.
Even when she said, you were my first boyfriend and amputation.
Perfect, Misty.
What's the second,
She's
Misty?
So good.
When was the second amputation?
Great question. And
the third? How many amputations are we adding up here?
Oy.
Yeah. But you know what? It's so funny. We're talking about how like he lets her hug him and he lets himself like feel that hug. He also lets that comment go and you see him do it. When she says, you were my first boyfriend, past Ben would have been like, Misty, I'm not your boyfriend. Yeah. I'm gay, blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of lets it pass because he's like, let her have it.
Yeah.
You know, she's trying. Yeah. But Lottie has other things in mind.
Leave everyone alone, Lottie. I know. I keep saying it, but
go live in a stump and make your jars of potions.
Go live in a stump is such a funny insult. It hurts to laugh. Live in a stump.
I really think she needs to go live in a stump and like bring her little potions and huff her gas and you know, dream about being in the mall and stealing clothes.
Exactly.
Like just leave people alone. But she wants Akilah to go back to the caves. She says Akilah wants to, but Akilah does not seem super enthusiastic.
No, I don't think so.
She says, I have this feeling that we need to go. It has more to say to you. She's leaning into her cult leader thing now. Big time. This is where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed that Travis has just always got a cup of tea in his hand now.
I know.
Is he just permanently like on a trip?
Which actually, if he's, microdosing isn't the worst thing.
I don't know how micro it is.
Yeah, it's hard
to
say.
He's sort of macro dosing. So we'll stick with the cave sort of side quest for the moment. Travis is drinking mushroom tea. I wrote, what is Lottie wearing? In those antler queen, stills that we've seen 1,000 times in the promo images. The antler queen is wearing what looks like a mesh net dress top thing that has like hair and things hung from it. It looks like she's starting her little hair collection. Yeah, she's got one little like almost like a Lucky Rabbit's foot or something.
I was
hanging from her
just
dress.
About to say it would be interesting if it came full circle. We were like, oh, who's going to be the antler queen at the end?
And it was Lottie.
If it's just Lottie. And one of the things we know, you tell me if we should cut this, is that one of the logged titles that we don't have confirmed yet is Full Circle.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I assumed it was about the record store in South Jersey, Full Circle Records.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that would make more sense. But so Akilah, Lottie, and Travis are walking. She says, this is so everything you were saying last week. She says the gas is a conduit, like the Oracle at Delphi. Which did we talk about the Oracle at Delphi? Was that one of the things we brought up?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, like Travis with the mushrooms, it like brings the wilderness closer. And I don't know that everyone like made this connection previously that I have been like reading these theories about, because I think people miss the fact that Travis clearly lied to Lottie about Akilah to get her off his back.
And they keep reminding us in this episode.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yep. Just the way he keeps looking every time she says this.
Mm-hmm. Like she's basically like, right, Travis, Pinky promise that you saw Akilah in your vision.
Right. Yeah.
It takes these backsies.
Right. Yeah. We're going in regardless. He says, I'll be there the second you pass out. And I wrote, like Lottie?
I know.
Who wasn't there the second he passed out?
I am so convinced that Lottie we know she was there, but was encouraging it and very likely instigating it.
Yeah.
Because the way she tells, just to remind everybody, the way she tells the story of her being at Travis's death is that he wanted to do it, that he was going to do it either way,
right,
and that she was there to be like his,
to keep him safe.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it was
reluctant that she was like, harm reduction. But I think it is way more likely that she went to him.
Yeah.
And
said,
was
like, we need to talk to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also think that it adds more credence to your theory that she was doing this herself in that basement.
Yep.
Like recreating this like cave experience to get close to it. So
you know, it would be really cool. I hadn't thought about this until just now. What if she was, because Lottie, I mean, it's, you know, the wilderness stopped communicating with her. And I think that's so funny to say flat out, as if I believe the wilderness is communicating, but stopped communicating with her. I wonder how willing to walk into the cave herself she would be if the wilderness were still communicating. Because what might be really fucking kind of cool is if she brought Callie to that building and was going to try to send Callie in as the more powerful one, the wilderness, whatever. And Callie like just fucking refused because
pushed her down the stairs
and either pushed her down the stairs, which I kind of like. Yeah. But what I don't love is the idea of like a really active example of generational trauma. What I would love to see is Callie just refuse and leave. And then Lottie be like, I guess I have to do it myself.
Well, and so I do think that I've seen speculation about Callie being the one who actually killed Lottie. And I was like, no, come on, that's ridiculous. But I will say that it would be, in terms of full circle,
exactly,
super like on point to have Callie be the one responsible in some way for Lottie's death.
Yeah, it depends on what we want from the adult timeline, because I keep saying there's no version of this show that ends up with these women going to therapy at the end.
Right.
So if what you want is to show how patterns continue and how generational trauma is a real thing, you have Lottie, you have Callie, whether on purpose or accidentally, kill Lottie. If what you want is to leave a little hope at the end of the series that you can break out of those patterns, you have Callie walk away.
Right, exactly. I think either way you could take it in either direction and still involve Callie. It just depends on what Callie's response is in the moment. Like if she recoils from it and is like, Jesus Christ, you all are fucking crazy, and like, you know, walks away and, you know, rejects this like insanity that her mother has lived in.
And that's a way to like let all of these women die in the present in a brutal way and still have a little bit of hope, is like.
Right. And then the opposite is like Callie is drawn in by this, and, you know, Lottie accidentally dies and Callie is there and is like somehow convinced that the wilderness has chosen her. You know, we could go even further with it.
Exactly. So I hadn't thought about that until just now. 'Cause I'd been like very anti-Callie being involved.
Me too.
Until this moment. But now I kind of like that.
I do see why it would make sense.
Yeah.
Just to dig the knife in a little deeper, Akilah says to Travis that he's the only one she can really trust. Travis, fucking say something.
I know. My bad.
But he's tripping.
Promise you won't get mad?
Yeah. He's tripping. He should definitely say something. But so they tie a rope around Akilah's waist. I wrote, Jesus, these people.
I know.
There's like weird growling sounds happening, and Lottie's telling her to listen to what's happening around her. I wrote, why doesn't she have a candle? Does she not get a light in this? She puts her candle down and walks off in the dark.
Really good point. Like, you're not sending me into a cave in the dark.
No, you can still have a candle.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway.
Great point.
Travis is, again, feeling guilty. He says it doesn't feel right. I'm going to go get her. And Lottie keeps telling him to wait.
Yep.
And we get then that weird camera work that we saw when the three of them last time had their hallucinations or their, you know, whatever. She starts to pass out. The rope stops, which is their signal to go get her. And Travis runs in. They try to take the rope off of her. They pick her up. Travis carries her off. He kind of falls. He tries to wake her. And for a minute, it looks like he's not going to be able to.
Yeah. Let's pause here real quick, because for a second, because then, you know, it cuts to other stuff happening in the wilderness here.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that was like, are they going to kill Akilah? And then that will be their way of saving Ben, because the wilderness decided that Akilah was actually to die in Ben's place.
Well, and it would connect to, I mean, obviously they didn't, but if they had, it would have connected to this idea that we've talked about, how like in the woods, what actually kills you is not what you think. Like Jackie freezes to death in the cold. You know, Akilah, instead of dying a violent death of some kind, dies in the cave from gas poisoning. It's not what happens, but I can see why it would make sense.
Right.
But Lottie doesn't even want her to him to wake her up yet.
I know. Give her
she
a
says,
second.
give her a second. And I'm like, Jesus, like,
I know.
What do you, fucking Lottie.
Lottie fucking Matthews.
She's chanting, "Bring her back to us," over and over again. And again, she sounds like a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yep. And Travis sees it.
It's like little kids having a seance kind of energy.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which, is real.
Works,
and so this also works. And Akilah comes back.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting that you were seeing very clearly this rift between Travis and Lottie over this whole thing. But we also know that Travis does not get out of the wilderness and never speak to Lottie again. Right. Like, we know that he still, is playing around with these things.
So then we'll pick back up with the with Akilah and the cave stuff, but let's jump back now and talk through Tai and Van, because that's really important.
Right. So they're in the woods and Tai says, "What's the plan?" And Van is like, "Oh, fucking listen to the trees."
Right.
Like, which is funny because she's saying it in an almost sarcastic way, but she also kind of means it.
Yeah. Well, because she doesn't really know what they're doing.
No.
They're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
She's being really jokey about it.
Yeah. And they're trying to figure out what has triggered it in the past, the sleepwalking, and because she hasn't sleepwalked in months. Right. And she says, I wrote, "Sex works too?" ?
Apparently.
I did not take notes here because I was like, okay.
Yeah, they have sex in the woods.
Yeah. I literally wrote, "Van takes over." Oh, okay. Yeah. Wind.
I do think it is worth noting, like, they have sex in the woods, but like you said, it is Van in, like, very much in control.
Absolutely. And like, that's not how it starts out. Van takes control from Tai, which I think is really intentional.
Exactly. But it doesn't work. And the fact, I understand, listen, I understand that they've been out here and that abnormal things have become normalized, and also that they're not to whatever, but they're girls from Jersey. And I just feel like gallows humor is kind of like one of our like main ways of communicating. And but they are so flippant. I mean, one way to take it is, I was just going to say that exact same thing.
Yeah, they're dissociated from what's actually happening. So Tai jokingly fakes being other Tai for a minute and says, "Let's just head back." But then they hear the trap go off. It's captured a rabbit. And Van hands her the knife. And at the moment, I didn't realize right away what I think she was doing, which was seeing if this would trigger Tai as well.
But she even says, like, the other thing the wilderness wants is blood.
Yes.
And it's also clearly it's clearly Tai's first kill in the wilderness.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting. They've been out there a year.
Yeah.
And I wrote, "Is it Akilah's rabbit? ? Oh, because she was holding that bunny.
Yeah, you're right.
And they killed the bunny. I mean, there's a lot of bunnies, but Van tells her to try to be present with it. I wrote, "Ugh, no.
Yeah.
Leave the rabbit alone."
Exactly.
But Tai slashes its throat. This is the blood on the leaf scene we saw in the preview. It's rabbit blood. And then the wind again. The wind is really active this episode. It's like really chiming in whenever it has something to say or it approves or disapproves.
Oh, do you think that's why they call them wind chimes?
Oh, geez.
Because the wind is chiming in.
Yeah, it must be it. It's giving its opinion.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, it's still me," because it didn't work.
Which is also, like, we keep saying other Tai.
It's still her.
Still Tai.
They're both Tai.
Unless there's some supernatural thing.
Which is not what we're getting.
No.
I do not think. But Akilah comes back. She says, "I saw something." And this is where we get Gulliver's Ben. Or Ben's travels.
So funny.
Yes. She was on a cliff. We should use the actual phrasing here. It's not just her recounting this hallucination. We see it as she saw it in her mind. And so she says, "I saw something." She says, "I was on a cliff and I couldn't see anything below me. But then I saw something in front of me. So I stepped out and it was Coach Scott, or his body, I guess. It was like he was suspended in air, but I could feel him breathing. It was like he was suspended in air or suspended in a pen of animals, but I could feel him breathing. He kept me from he kept me from falling so that I could get to the other side. Could you see him beyond him? It was just darkness, but
she says that, but we see there's like some city lights and we hear a car horn.
Yes, exactly. And she says, Lottie asks, "How did you feel?" She says, "It was weird because I thought that I should feel scared, but I didn't. I felt hope." So, yeah. This scene, to me, I immediately was like, because I've been talking about this, like my worst fear is that they like eat him alive, eat him alive, but like piece him out while he's still alive,
right, because they know they can cut a limb off and keep him alive.
Right. I think it is more likely that what they do is they keep him alive until they need him, and then they kill him and smoke the meat. But like either way, in my mind immediately, I was like, oh, their bridge through the winter until they can get saved. Yeah.
So mine is a little different because in the next time we see Ben, he's in the pen holding the baby goat with the bunny, and mine is so naive, and I'm just so the blind belief I have the belief I have in wanting Ben to make it back. It's like I understand, this is the first time where I think maybe I understand people who have religion, where it's like, I don't
Ben is your religion. Ben at Lottie's compound is your religion.
Because it's like, I don't have proof, and I understand it doesn't necessarily make sense, but I have faith. I have a hope, because he hears Paul say, Ben, come back to me. And then I was like, what if the thing, I'm almost embarrassed to say this out loud. What if somehow Paul charters a plane or something because he wants Ben back so badly, and he's the one? What if it's Ben's boyfriend, Paul, who ultimately leads to the girls' rescue? And that's how Ben's the bridge, because why would Paul be looking for these girls if he didn't have hope that Ben was out there with them?
So it's save the gays instead of kill the gays?
That's right.
I would love nothing more. I do think they're going to kill him and eat him to get through the winter. Yes.
Okay, but
I would love nothing more. I would love it if you were right. I would be so happy.
Because I got nervous at first when I heard Paul, because I was like, oh, come home to me. Like, come home. Yeah. But Paul's still alive.
Paul's not dead.
Yeah, Paul's not dead.
As far as we know. Yeah.
So what if?
Yeah, I would love it.
This like little like kind of like charter whatever plane lands in the wilderness, and the door opens. And Ben's
let's wish cast here. Let's wish cast. This happens, right? But the only people around in the moment are Ben.
Right. Well, one little thing though is that we have seen people keep like saying like, what if Joel McHale is Ben's boyfriend in the future, Paul in the future? But we do have an actor who played Paul,
right? So yes,
and not that they're against recasting.
Sure, no, they're definitely not. I've also seen like, what if Joel McHale is like the pilot or something? Because
that's fun.
I saw in an interview, I believe, with Ashley Lyle saying something about how they had to like line everyone's schedules up really carefully. I feel like Joel McHale is like a one episode. Yeah. Because we haven't seen him in any promos. So he's more of like, I think, a guest star. There was a funny, cute story about how she and Joel McHale were at an event. And
he lived in Jersey for a little while, by the way. In Haddonfield, in fact.
Oh, South Jersey. And apparently at this event that they were both at, he was drunk, and they had a conversation about how he should have some small role on Yellowjackets or whatever. And then when she ended up reaching out to him, he was like, oh, I thought you were just humoring me because I was drunk. And she was like, no, I really want you to be on the show. That's so how it happened.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. All that said, as of right now, it is not looking like that is the direction we are headed.
To you, but to me, that's what's in my heart.
Well, he's holding the goat and the girls come in, and Robin, who we've known this whole time,
right,
says sorry and puts a cloth over his head. This is rough. Ty looks upset.
Yeah.
Everyone looks upset for the most part, except for fucking Shauna and Melissa. They put him up against a tree, and Nat puts the necklace on him.
I know. It is so sad, and also like there is something really sad to me about her trying to ritualize it and make it and do something that feels to her like almost like a kindness in a weird way.
Yeah, but he's not letting her have this moment of kindness, because he says, you don't have to do this. And he's right. She could object more. This is the moment where, to me, if he had actually burned the cabin down, which you and I both don't think he did it no matter what,
right,
he would have turned. But instead, the worst he says is like, fuck you guys or whatever. Yeah, he says, what the fuck are you guys doing? It's me. This is not who you are. It is, but... And then Nat turns away and he says, if you're going to do this, you're going to look me in the eye, which is something that has been said before by, I believe, Nat when Shauna was going to kill her before that hunt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right before Travis, like, you know, orchestrated it so she could escape.
Huh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah. And this is where Jen is like...
Again, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
You don't get out of here, Jen.
Yes, fuck off.
Scram.
But this is where he says, what kind of monsters have you all become? Fuck you. And Misty's crying, Ty's crying. He's basically begging for his life. Like, this is rough.
This really hard to watch.
When I said a couple episodes ago that I was having so much fun with all the silliness that they were giving us and all the Jersey references, but I knew what was coming. This is what I was fucking talking about. I knew it was coming. But then what Ty and Van had been working for finally happens. She does not want to shoot him, and the
gun is trembling.
Yeah.
Or
and
she's
so other Ty takes over,
and you see that flip. I don't think we've seen that flip in young Ty, like on camera. I think we've either seen regular Ty or her.
Right, we've seen her wake up as other Ty a lot. Yeah, she says it'll be all right.
It'll be all right.
And then from stage left,
perfect timing.
From stage left, Travis knocks Ty down with the gun, and then the other two like push Ben out of the way. Yeah,
he has a purpose. He's our bridge home.
Yep, you can't kill him just yet. He's our bridge home.
Right, because Paul will be looking for him.
I wish. I really do. And then this last scene. This is like, yeah. Coach is tied up in the dark. He thinks he's gotten a reprieve, which he kind of has, but not the kind he thought he was getting, because Shauna and Mel come in. They don't acknowledge him as a human at all anymore. They're talking only to each other. Really bad. It's so funny, like the roller coaster of this, because for me, I was uneasily relieved that Ben got. It's literally the very next scene where these two walk in and you think they're going to kill him. Yeah. And then that made me think, oh, they're definitely going to kill him, because it's so fucked up of this show to do that to us, to give us hope for a second and take it away. But it is maybe worse. Yeah. I think at this point he probably does think it's worse. It's like, worse if he doesn't if he doesn't make it out. If he doesn't make it out, this is worse. Yeah. Shauna tells Mel to do it. She's like seeing what power she has over this other person, you know? And Mel says creating a little bit of a monster. Yeah. I got to say, though, I think Mel was already there. Like, what I'm seeing of her this whole time is that she may be a little hesitant to do certain things, but she's fucking into it. Well, she's into it, but I wonder if there's a difference between, it's like, it's like, this is what I've been trying to like get to. It's so Lady Macbeth, because it's like, it's one thing to be in someone else's ear, encouraging them to do the bad thing. Yeah. But then to be the one to have the literal blood on your hands is something entirely different. Yeah. And Shauna is acting like she's like propping Mel up. But I wonder, especially with the like mutually assured destruction thing from Walter in this episode, I wonder how much of this, because we've never, I don't know that like loyalty and bonds and that kind of thing matter to Shauna or ever have. And so I don't necessarily think this is Shauna like encouraging Mel to like embrace her strong side. I think this is like maybe her being like, you're going to be guilty too. Yeah. She wants someone else that is an accomplice to this, because the thing about Shauna, especially how calculated she is right now in this timeline, I do think that if she went rogue on her own and did this to Ben or killed Ben, it would not create this same kind of fear of her that it does when she has one other person with her. Yeah. Well, it's the numbers. Right. I mean, we find out right after what happens that everybody was okay with it. Yeah. Because I wondered, so Mel goes over, grabs his leg, he yells. I'm like,
doesn't anybody hear him screaming? Hello, camp's not that big. He tells her to fuck off, which I think is so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to jump back for a second, this is where Shauna repeats Mel's words back to her and says, you shouldn't be scared of the bad parts of you either. We hear PJ Harvey, our only needle drop this episode, I
think you're right.
Yeah. And we know that Ashley Lyle is a huge PJ Harvey fan. But yeah, she grabs his leg and she fucking cuts his Achilles tendon. But what this does, for those of you who didn't grow up going to the mall in Jersey with the rumor of guys that would hide under your car and cut your Achilles so they could like either carjack you or rape you, which is something that we grew up with.
So funny. I actually didn't make that specific connection, but yeah, you know, you leave
such
something.
A specific suburban legend.
That's why if you ever see something on your windshield or under your car, you never stop to pick it up because that gives them time to slash your Achilles tendon.
Yep. Always take a peek under your car. Always have your keys between your fingers. All of those things.
Which we do also see when Shauna does that in the bathroom scene a couple episodes back with the keys in the fingers.
If you grew up in the 90s, you had these stories told to you. That the Achilles tendon one was a real thing that everybody heard.
Yeah.
I don't know that it ever happened, but it was definitely like something we were all warned about. But doing this, Mel looks psyched.
Yeah. She loves it.
Yeah. Like you can see the like power kind of go to her head here.
I got a little nervous in the moment that she was going to get overzealous with the plan and kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. But she knows her place. She's not going to do something that Shauna doesn't approve of.
Right. We get that shot of Ben that we had in the like this season where we thought maybe that was him being set on fire.
Yeah. The screaming. But they come back out of the pen to the group. This is where we realize that everyone was aware of what was about to happen. And they say he won't be going anywhere. Misty is holding her ears because Ben is still screaming.
That scream is awful.
I know.
It's so sad.
I know. And the people that all along have been trying to save him, you can tell are just like really like distraught. Mel and Shauna, they hold hands here and Mel's hands are all bloody. It's like this moment of like, yeah, we did this. Watch out. You know, and Van clocks this. And I've seen a lot of jokes about how it's like Van being like, wait, we're not the only queer couple here. Like that was our role,
that was
guys.
Our thing.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But she clocks it. And I do think it's more just like acknowledging a new danger, basically. But she does a double take. Travis looks like he feels guilty. And then Mel follows Shauna into the hut. And goes to sit at her right hand.
Can you, the Nat, you don't have to enjoy it so much. You don't have to be such a fucking saint.
Yep. So PJ Harvey's playing, and then we hear Ben screaming in the distance, and he won't be going anywhere. And Nat says, you don't have to enjoy it this much. And Shauna says, and you don't have to act like such a fucking saint. But Shauna loves the saints, remember?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Funny.
They're so tragic.
They're so tragic.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh. Nat.
Yeah. And then so the PJ Harvey song is playing over the outro. And the refrain is above every day, I'm going to twist your head off, see, till you say, don't you wish you never met her? Don't you wish you never met her? Over and over again. Yeah. So that is where we leave it. It's wild. It's wild. I mean, it's so funny because all of the, I don't want to harp on the complaints, but I think I just want to mention that the complaint is that this episode was really slow and nothing happened. And like, not enough happened in my opinion. I wanted more movement forward, but this is also the middle of the season. And it is about this time where you tend to get episodes that are setting up the last, the last leg of the season.
Right.
And so that is clearly what they're trying to do here. So yeah, we're gonna, I've already watched the trailer. It's very short. There's only a few scenes. So those chalked faces at the end are what I was referring to when I said, like, if you're thinking about whether there'll be like a botched rescue attempt, the shock on their faces could be in reaction to them seeing someone actually show up. But I think that's a stretch, but that was kind of where my brain went.
I do feel like the fact that they showed us so little in that has me feeling like what's coming next is big.
Yeah, and if they did have like a botched rescue attempt this season, it wouldn't be in episode 6.
No,
I don't think that's what's coming, but it looks like we're going to get, finally the tape makes its way to Shauna after all this time. And Misty is still working through the evidence about Lottie's death. And then we're still with the two warring groups fighting over Ben. And we did think that Ben would most likely, or at least somewhat likely, be the reason, or not the reason, but the sort of catalyst
for
the split that they keep talking about.
Well, and he's clearly begging.
Yeah.
Because my guess now is, after seeing that, is he feels like what's coming for him now is worse than death.
Yeah, that they're going to basically torture him for as long as they want to.
Right, and he is asking Nat to. That would be okay. So what would be that would be really heartbreaking for Nat to be the one to do it, because.
Well, and it would also explain a little bit more how incredibly tragic Juliette Lewis was as adult Nat, because up until this point, it was like we had some explanation for that in her own childhood and the things that they experienced in the woods, but like she hadn't gone through anything worse than anyone else out there at this point. And if she has to kill him to save him from the psychos that she's out there with, that is something that will wreck you basically forever, and like would explain very much why she was as tragic of a figure as she was, with so little like hope for redemption.
Right. That's exactly right. Oh boy.
So,
but,
yeah.
And
we are in it.
Paul. We don't know.
And or Paul.
Anything could happen. Could be Paul. Could be Paul.
We could set up a Harmony Cobell like shrine to Paul and see if that brings him back to save our Ben.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. We'll set up a little we'll pray to Kier
for old Ben.
Yeah. Yeah. That's rough, man. It is rough. But I don't know. I am still excited to see what happens next week. I really am. I'm me like, too. Give me more information. Like the Lottie Matthews history drop was great. And I would love to hear more about, I want to meet Shauna's fucking parents, or at least know about Shauna's parents. I would love to know how Misty Quigley was raised, you know, or not raised as like a feral child.
Yeah, right.
Like I just want to know more about their histories. And I'm hoping that this is a sign that maybe that's still to come, even if it's little bits of information, because up until this point, there's been no sign that we're ever going to learn more than we already know about their family.
Exactly.
So maybe we will. So I don't know that we need to do too much theorizing at this point, because I do think that like they're in the process of unfolding those mysteries, because we know that episode 8 is most likely when Hilary Swank's character comes in. So we've got 2 more before that. They will probably use those next 2 episodes leading up to 8, 9, and 10, or leading up to 9 and 10. Leading up to 8, 9, and 10.
Right.
To kind of maybe resolve some of the smaller mysteries so that we can get the big reveal of Melissa, maybe Hilary Swank, Walter's sister, who the fuck knows what she is. Some random stalker.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see how that plays out.
That freaking stalk much comment from Shauna has me really like,
funny,
convinced that it's Melissa.
That it's Melissa. That's really good. I love that.
Yeah.
I just think it's gotta be.
I know.
Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe we'll save some of the deeper theorizing for next week. It seems like we're going to get a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Where can they find us, Andrea?
We're WatchersPodNJ on Instagram. You can shoot us an email at WatchersPodNJ@gmail. And I'm at AQAndreaQ on Instagram.
And I am Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM on Instagram. And we will see you next week.
In the woods.
In the livestock pen?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Oh, Ben. Run, Ben. Run.
Cruel, Jodie. He's not going anywhere.
Oh, come on, Paul. All right, let's go make our shrine to Paul. We'll pray to Kier. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.